What I've said is the American military, that is not our mission as regime change. Our mission was to destroy the nuclear facilities and the nuclear program of Iran, which we, of course, did. I think what the president's also said is that the Iranian people want to make a decision about regime change. That's between the Iranian people and the regime. Of course, we support freedom fighters all around the world, but our mission was to destroy the nuclear facilities, and that's what we did.
Vice President Vance also reacting at the very beginning to the president's Truth Social, saying there is a ceasefire within 6 hours between Iran and Israel. To be fair, and I asked him about this at the end of the interview, his staff brought him the Truth Social seconds before we came to him, and I read it just before I started that interview. A little behind the scenes. Let's bring in our panel: Fox News contributor Mark Thiessen, Fox News senior political analyst Juan Williams, and Fox News contributor Mary Katharine Ham. That was quite something. I mean, that was live TV, Mary Katharine.
Indeed. Nice to have a vice president who could go out and talk fluently about something he gets word of right the second he hits the stage.
To be fair, he said it was talked about a little bit at the White House, but I think that the exact writing he read on this set.
Yeah.
I think you're referring to his predecessor.
I am indeed. In the words of the vice president, he notes that Iran is incapable of moving forward with its nuclear program, developing a nuclear weapon, and that's a very, very big thing, to put it mildly. I mean, I think it's been a momentous week. Donald Trump is a consequential figure in so many ways, and I think this was a courageous decision. I've watched my entire life Iran take an aggressive posture towards Americans, kill, maim, hurt Americans, American targets over and over again, threaten the entire region, be close to a nuclear bomb throughout much of this time. And it could count on the Obama and Biden administrations being quite deferential to it, to the point of giving it money and making deals that allowed it to get really, really close. It's a courageous decision to send the B-2 because it's never been, the MOPS have never been used in that way, and because there is risk involved. And so I think we're seeing that a little bit with this small retaliation in Qatar, but it was a small window of opportunity to make a really big difference with a really precise strike, and I think it's impressive.
The ceasefire, whatever it turns out to be, is supposed to start in 6 hours. I bet the Israelis are doing a lot, Juan, in 6 hours. If I had to guess, I think that Prime Minister Netanyahu has enjoyed having the freedom of movement in the skies over Iran.
Right, and I don't think that there's been any evidence of restraint on his part thus far. So I guess history would indicate that he's going to take advantage of it. I just wanted to say that what I noticed from the vice president's visit here today at Fox is that he said, you know, look, to America, we had no casualties, and this was a tepid response, and that's a victory. And I say this to you as someone who, you know, I'm part of the American people that was reluctant to support this because I think there is, as Mary Katharine was saying, risk attached. But that's a victory. The thing about it is, I think that the administration sent him here to talk to you because he's been part of the administration, the MAGA base, that was reluctant to intervene. And, you know, people like Steve Bannon are still out there. And Bannon says, yeah, it was a great success, the operation. But what comes next? And I think the president's going to have to explain that beyond talking about a ceasefire. He's going to have to say, do we want unconditional surrender? Do we want regime change? Do you have to give up any nukes? I mean, because we don't absolutely know if the operation was a success in getting rid of the nuclear material. Now, he said, what did he say to you? Obliterated?
Obliterated. He used that 3 times. Yesterday on ABC, he said damaged or obliterated. But I think what he's saying is that they can't build it currently, a nuclear bomb. Yeah. But where the highly enriched uranium is a big question. Yeah. He says that's not the primary question. And the question is, what happens from now?
Well, what's happened is that Iran has cried Ammo, which is Persian for uncle. And what Donald Trump has done is the exact same thing he did after the Soleimani strike, which was very similar to this, is that he told the Iranians that if you retaliate and kill a single American after the Soleimani strike, I'll kill the Ayatollah Khamenei. And he threatened that on Truth Social. And the Iranians stood down last time. And they stood down again. They warned us. They fired 14 missiles. They told us they were coming. We shot down 13 of them. The other one went nowhere. So it's and the difference between now and then, Brett, is that back then, they still had their entire terrorist network in place. They still had Hamas. They still had Hezbollah. They still had Syria as an ally. They had all of the Houthis. Everybody was untouched. Now that's all been obliterated by, to coin a phrase, by Bibi Netanyahu. And they've lost half of their missiles and their missile launchers. They had really no capability to retaliate. And so they had a choice: accept this ceasefire, do a symbolic strike that they warned us about, or face decapitation, because Donald Trump said he would change the regime if they went after us.
But this does have to be a tough pill to swallow if you're Bibi Netanyahu and you're having such success, and you've got to stop now. You see the light at the end of the tunnel of a regime change from the Israeli point of view. The administration is saying that's not our goal. But really, if this government stays in place, Mary Katharine, and they somehow still have the highly enriched uranium, how long does it take before they get the band back together and start playing the music?
Right. I mean, both are risks. And, you know, Trump with his spin on peace through strength has said you need some toughness to make peace. And Netanyahu is going to be saying, I have more toughness to give to the Iranians. But I think Trump has really read the situation correctly on a couple of times when everyone has said this is going to make this great conflagration. When he moved the embassy to Jerusalem, when he went after Soleimani, he is very invested in doing quick, like occasional bellicosity to take out a specific target and then back up and say that my work here is done, whether it's the Houthis or what have you. But yes, it is hard for Israel to look and for Netanyahu to look at Iran as it sits and say, okay, now we pull back because they do have superiority. And they have done so much of the work to make this possible. We would not have thought we would have been here with all
part
of
of
these
that
processes
then, if what the president is announcing tonight is right, that there's a ceasefire and they're going to have some more talks now, hopefully talks, the question then becomes, who verifies that, in fact, the nuclear material has been taken away?
It's got to be part of the talks.
Well, right. And so I can't imagine Israel sending troops in there. Maybe they send.
Well, they already have people on the ground.
Well, we'll see. But I hope it's not Americans, because that will reignite
let me ask you
talks
this.
of
This is
forever war.
more. This is very quick. More of a strategic deterrence and a message not only to Iran but also to China, to Russia, to North Korea, all over the place.
Yeah,
ahead of a NATO summit.
A Chinese invasion of Taiwan is much less likely now than it was a week ago, and I think the message has been sent around the world that the Donald Trump of the first term, who was willing to exercise military force, is back.
Panel, thanks.